Hey, Chad here from Greyscalegorilla. I want to show you my favorite ways to get wood materials looking great. First things first, we need to talk a little bit about nanotubes and chatoyance. So wood is made up of really tiny cell structures, kind of like fibers. They're called nanotubes. They're very, very, very tiny, but some wood, depending on how these nanotubes are packed, are going to stretch the highlights to give you kind of this metallic effect. This is called chatoyance. And when we scan our unfinished wood materials, we captured that in a metalness map so that that highlight is going to kind of stretch and turn and shimmer a little bit. But we have it in our unfinished woods. In fact, it's in our red cedar, which is what I'm going to show you today. So yeah, let's jump in.
Okay, so here we are in Cinema 4D. We've got these cool modular tray system here that we're going to turn into some cool wood trays using one of our cedar materials. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is open up Greyscalegorilla Studio, which again is an awesome new app for accessing all of our assets. So let's go ahead and launch that. And you can see here we've got all of our Plus assets right at our fingertips. And I've already got favorited the one that we're going to use for this video, which is our red cedar. So the red cedar is really going to show up nicely and have some cool knots and stuff. And we're going to use Redshift Jitter to randomize some of the aspects of this material to make it look like we have many red cedar materials and not just one. Okay, so the way I like to work with Studio is dock it off to the side. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. I've got a hotkey here to do that, and I'm going to put Cinema on the other side. Next thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm connected. So down here, this little chain link that's broken, I'm going to click that, and that means I'm connected to Cinema 4D, so I can send assets directly into my scene. So with the null of the wood tray selected, I'm going to go over to my red cedar and just send it. And there we go. Now we've assigned the red cedar material to the wood trays. Okay, so this is where we're going to do most of our work, is going to be inside of this red cedar material. So we don't need the studio up anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and just like maximize that to get that out of the way, and we'll give ourselves a little bit more space down here to work with. Okay, so if we just hit go on the IPR for this scene, we're going to see the wood. It looks great, but they're all the same. Each one is just using the same material, same color, same tone, same everything, same texture, everything. So we want to randomize that. And the way that we're going to do that is using the Redshift Jitter node. So if I just drop in a jitter, just take a look at what we're talking about here. Jitter allows you the opportunity to sort of randomize different things based on a name ID, object ID, or user data. So generally speaking, I'm going to be using name ID most of the time for this video, which basically means that if it has a different name, then it's going to get a different value. If these had all the same names, then you're not really going to see anything different if I start changing stuff. Okay, so we haven't connected anything up yet, but I wanted to explain really quickly each one of these different parameters. So color jitter does exactly what you would think. With an input, you can change the hue variation, saturation, and value variation. It can also do float jitter, which is really nice, and we're going to talk about that and how I set that up. And then integer jitter, which I haven't really used that much, but I could see that being useful in some cases for like switching randomly between like a ray switch or something. Okay, so let's use float jitter, because what we want to do is randomly offset the UVs, or the texture offset of each one of these textures, so that it's random. It's not like the same. So if we had a bunch of the same trays, where they wouldn't have the exact same knot in the exact same place. All right, so with that jitter selected, let's go ahead and drag our out float, because that's what we're going to use to control the offset. And we're going to put it right into the base color, and we're going to find general UV remap and plug it into offset. And we have to do this for all of these in the exact same way, so that they're not offsetting and breaking our material, and we have our normal map in a different position as our base color and all that. So let's go ahead and plug all these in just like this. And once we do that, we'll be set up. Okay, so now they're set up, and nothing has changed because our float jitter has a min of 0 and a max of 0, so there's not actually any jittering going on. So if we change this to a value of 1, we're immediately going to see a different result. It's going to offset the textures randomly from 0 to 1. And now all we have to do is change the seed until we see something that we like. And I'm going to look for something that maybe puts the knot in an interesting spot, because I know we have like a close-up. Ooh, this might actually be good. The only thing, oh, actually, yeah, I'm digging this. This is working. This is a different knot than that one. They all look sort of different. And if I jump into my close-up, I think we'll actually see that knot pretty well. Yep, that's perfect. All right, let's jump back into our wide shot. Awesome. All right, so you can see just how easy that is. It doesn't really take a ton of effort, and now we have a really nice randomly offset textures. So they all look the same still. They're all using the same base color, the same color wood, and we need to change that if we want to make these look like they were maybe cut from different pieces of wood, not the same piece of wood. So we're going to do that by jittering the base color. So let's drop another jitter in, and we're going to plug the out color of our base color into the input color on our jitter, and then the out color into our base color of our material. We're basically just putting this in between the base color and the material. And immediately it gets crazy, it gets weird, right? And the reason is because the default positions of all of these, of the color jitter, is basically set up to give you variation in everything, which we don't really want. Like, we don't want a variation in the hue, so we're going to change this from 0 and 1 to 0 and 0. We could do like 90 here, which is going to be like crazy wood, which is going to give us a lot of hue variation, but we don't want any hue variation in this. And in fact, we barely want any saturation variation. So we want the maximum saturation to maybe be like 0.05 and the minimum to be like maybe negative 0.1. Okay, so that's kind of where I usually put my wood, but you can see the value is still being getting some jitter here. We got a value variation min of 0 and a max of 1. That's too much. In fact, I don't want it to get very much, I don't want it to get much lighter than it is right now, so I might do a 0.1 as our max, and maybe a negative 0.1 is our min. And we might be able to go even a little darker, maybe negative 0.15. Yeah, something like that. And now we have to do, all we have to do is change the seed and see if we get a cool result. Well, I'm liking that, but let's change the seed on the saturation too, just to see what we get. It's a little bit better. We could maybe go a little bit heavy-handed on the saturation, maybe go 0.1. This might be too much, but we're just going to see. And let's change that again, changing the seed. Yeah, that's looking good. It's probably a bit heavy on the saturation variation, but I wanted to kind of make it obvious when we changed it. So I'm liking that. Let's look at our close-up, make sure it's still working. Yep, looking good. That's kind of all I do, really. Sometimes I'll dive in and like change the roughness and put a jitter in there as well to maybe vary up the roughness and whatnot. But I usually keep it pretty simple. I don't like to try to go too crazy. But you can kind of quickly see just how easy it is to start adding variation to your materials, you know, to get more out of it, to make it look like, oh, that could be a completely different material. You don't know. So because we're in name ID, these names all have to be different. And that's actually great, but sometimes maybe you can't do that, and maybe you want to in fact have a few of them with the exact same jitter as some other ones. So let's say that, for instance, we want this tray and maybe this tray and this tray to be the same. So we could just change their name into something similar. In fact, let's just grab all of them. And we're just going to give them all the same name, and I'll just demonstrate what this looks like. So I'm going to use our little plus renamer, which we've been thinking about putting this out. If you want to see us put this plus renamer tool into plus, let me know. Hit me up in the comments. But it's a really simple, minimal renamer tool that I love. So we're just going to rename these all to test. And we're going to rename all the objects like that. And now what's going to happen is you're going to see the exact same value across all these different trays because they all have the same name. So if I just grab any of them and just change their name, let's just grab the name of this one and we'll call it 2. You can see it's going to be different than the rest of them. There we go. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can kind of hack it and name things similar that you want to have the same jitter offset. All right, so that wraps up how I get some variation into my wood looks. So that's it for this section. Let's move on. Okay, so next I want to talk about a question. Well, it's an answer to a question that I get quite a bit, which is, how do you get this plywood edge look where you have the top plies, a certain wood material, then you have this great like striped plywood edge look? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, we got our fresh scene here. Let's make some plywood. So I'm going to jump over here, grab a plane, and let's make that plane 4 foot by 4 foot. So 4 feet, it'll do the conversion for me. 4 feet, there we go. Let's drop in a thicken. This is kind of how I do it. Obviously, you could create just a regular cube, and you could, go in and UV it all you want, but this is kind of a cool way to keep it sort of parametric. So let's grab a thicken generator. Make sure you don't grab that other thicken. We'll make the plane a child of that, and instantly we get some thickness there. And let's make sure that the height is going to be 1 inch. So we have a 4 by 4 by 1. Oops, I did not mean to hit 0. There we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and look at it with lines. I think we might want to subdivide it more, but for right now, it's fine. So under our thicken, under selections, you can see we have the ability to assign materials just based on these different polygonal selections. So we can enable the shell, which is going to be able to give us a different material on that edge, which is exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and bring in some materials for this. Let's look for that maple veneer that I used in my example. So I think it's maple veneer rough 02, I think. Yep, there it is. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and download that. Make sure Cinema is connected. Yep, and let's go ahead and send that on in. And immediately it's assigned, because I have the thicken selected, to that object. And let's go ahead and look at that. That's looking good. So I didn't actually give this material a selection assignment because I want it to apply to the entire object. But when I bring in my plywood edge material, that's when we're going to use that selection in our thicken here. Okay, so let's jump back into Studio, and this time let's look for edge, plywood edge. There we go. It's already downloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and send it, and it's also going to get applied to that thicken. So there we go. And now in here, I just want to make sure that I am giving it that selection of PB. So let's go ahead and type in PB under selection here, and let's fire up our IPR. Make sure everything is working properly. There it is, but the mapping is completely wrong. Obviously, we don't want that kind of mapping. So what I do for these types of situations, this is very simple. I'm not going to get in here and like UV it because it's just a cube map. So I'll just go down and under projection, I'm going to select cube, and then I'm just going to go into my texture mode here, and we're going to hit T for scale, and we're going to scale this way down until we have something that looks like a few plies of our plywood. So let's jump in here, keep scaling it down. Somewhere like maybe there, however many plies we want to do, and there we go. The other thing that I might do is I might actually do cubic for the top and bottom as well. I might come over here and do cubic just so I can adjust it in the viewport a little bit better. So maybe I want to offset this a little bit somehow, somewhere in here. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so that kind of covers the basics, but you can kind of see here that we've got some pretty harsh edges. And there's a couple different ways that you could tackle that. You could do, a bevel and kind of work your way through it that way, but I want to keep it as parametric and light as possible. So what I usually do is I'll use round corners. So I'm just going to double click this. We're all done with Greyscalegorilla Studio now, so I'm just going to double click this and expand Cinema out. And let's grab our plywood edge, and we're going to bring this up like that, and we're going to zoom into this material here, and we're going to grab a round corner, or round, I believe it's called, round corners. All right, so this round corners is going to round out this little edge and not make it so perfect 90-degree computery looking edge. The next thing we need to do is grab a bump blender. So we'll grab a bump blender, and we'll toss our bump map into there, and then we'll put our round corners into the next one, and we'll throw that into the bump map, and we'll just let it do its thing. And now we need to mix this in because right now it's set to nothing. So if we make this 1, you can see it's very soft. It's kind of like too soft. It's gonna make it look kind of crappy, so we have to kind of bring the radius down, and there we go. It's really subtle, but you can see it right in there. Maybe we'll bring it up to 0.25, somewhere like that. All right, so let's do the same thing to that veneer as well. So we're just going to take these two nodes, I'm going to copy them, and we're going to paste them right into our veneer. And of course, that one's going to go in there, and this one's going to go in here. And that should give us a little bit of a rounded edge on that top as well. Yep, it did. So what I like about working this way is that it's completely parametric. I can come back in here and change this plane to be, I don't know, like half the width or something. So we'll divide that by 2. And because it's all parametric and we're using cubic, my textures aren't scaling. Everything is just working exactly as you would expect. And then from here, what I might do is add a little bit of displacement to kind of make it look not quite so perfect, like a displace modifier. So let's go ahead and add that in. Displace, or a deformer rather. I always tend to use my old 3ds Max terms. Don't tell anybody. All right, so shading, noise, and obviously that's way too strong. So let's bring that down to like 0.2, and maybe we want to change the scaling down a little bit, actually up a little bit. Let's make it like double, and let's bring that up to 0.8, something like that. That's probably going to be too much. And what's great too is we can also just increase our subdivisions if we want, make it like really crazy, something like that. I don't think you'd ever want it to be this dense unless you were doing some really crazy displacement, or if you're using one of our woods that have displacement, obviously you'd want that. But all right, that's feeling a bit too much, and it's obviously way too many segments, so we're going to bring that back down, and let's bring this back to 121. All right, so that kind of is the trick. That's kind of all I usually do for something like that. It's really not much to it. Hopefully this helps, and I gave you a little window into some of my approaches with wood and what I like to set up and how I like to work with wood and all the jitter and all of the little hacky things and whatnot. So hopefully you got something out of it. And until next time, I'll see you later.